Good evening, everyone. Welcome to LFC Transfer Room this evening. Just trying to get things started with Reese and Kings, who are going to be joining us tonight. Don't seem to be coming up onto the screen at the moment. Let me just see if I can fix the layout for that. All we're going to be doing this evening is we're just going to have a preview through tomorrow's game against Tottenham. We're going to think about the Carabao Cup and have a look ahead at kind of what to expect from it. We're going to go through predicted 11s and kind of what we all think might happen with the game, and have a little chat about kind of expectations and see what's going to happen with the cup game and see where it goes from there. While I'm getting through the start of this, lads, one of you text Steve and see if you can jump in and sort the layout of the thing. I'm not really sure why it's not working. While they're doing that though, make sure to like and subscribe to everything on YouTube and Twitter and X. Make sure you turn all your notifications on for future streams so you catch up with all of our content through the evenings and 7:30 each night as we go through. I'm not sure they can see you yet, Kings, but how are you doing? You okay this evening?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, mate. How are you? I know you're struggling with this, but how's things in general with you?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Thank you. Hopefully we get to see you in a second as well. Reese, you there as well? How you doing, bud?
I'm good. Not too bad, Yeah. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good, mate. Just thinking ahead of tomorrow, obviously 1-0 behind in the Cup semi-final to Spurs. I think when you look through history, through some of the results that we've had previously, we've got I think there's 5 different occasions where Liverpool have been losing after the first leg, and only on 2 of those occasions have they come behind to turn it around and still make it to Wembley afterwards. But thinking ahead to tomorrow, how are you both kind of feeling about tomorrow beforehand? A little bit apprehensive or looking forward to it and thinking we're going to turn this around tomorrow? Start with you, Kings. How are you kind of feeling about things?
It sounds, I suppose, a little bit maybe blasé about it, but I don't see 1-0 deficit from the first game being a problem. I've every confidence that Liverpool are going to turn that around fairly easy. I mean, Spurs have got so many injury problems. I mean, saying that, I thought that for the first leg, and then of course they win 1-0. But I think overall, Arne Slot is going to, put out his strongest side because he knows he's that step away now from Wembley, and that Anfield's going to be rocking, thinking there's a day out of Wembley at stake here. So I hope I'm right, but I don't see a problem with the 1-0 deficit. I think they'll turn around. I've got the feeling it might end up 3 or 4-1 on the night. I think something like that. So hopefully, that's going to be a lot better result, and then give the lads obviously confidence going forward from there. But yeah, I think it'll be a straightforward victory. He says with cross fingers.
Yeah, that's it. You never know in terms of that. In all honesty, I'm feeling fairly similar to yourself. I'm kind of looking ahead to the game, thinking the way Spurs have been at the moment, the way we've been at the moment, with us only being the goal behind, I can't really see on the night how Liverpool, the way they've been playing, aren't going to win the game, even if it does mean a 1-0 or a 2-1 and it goes to extra time and penalties. I can't see on the night a draw or a loss in my head, and when I'm thinking ahead to it, if I'm honest with you. And to me, that just feels like if we score 1, we'll score 2 or 3 is how I kind of look at it tomorrow. I think with their defence, you never know. Hopefully everyone can now see Reese and Kings, and hopefully they've now managed to be on the screen. So cheers, fellas. Reese, what about you? What are your kind of thoughts for tomorrow?
I'm quite confident. No disrespect, but I'm never really worried about Spurs. I know they beat us the 1-0, but even if you look at that game, we had our chances. We just kind of didn't take them. They played okay. It wasn't really a great game. And if you look at it beforehand, we were kind of coming into a bit of bad form before that game. So for me, for them, obviously I'm not gonna underestimate them, but I just see it as, I think we're gonna win. I don't think it's gonna be a problem. I think if they had the scoreline that Newcastle had and it was 2, I still think we could come back, but they'll be in a strong position. I just think 1-0. I was more annoyed about just losing because Liverpool ain't really lost much games this season. So when you're used to winning, but 1-0, I'm not really concerned to think that we're not going to go through tomorrow. I think we have to be terrible and Tottenham have to be amazing. I just don't see that happening with the players we have.
Yeah, fair. And I can't disagree with you if I'm honest, because like you touched on in the first game, we weren't, obviously we haven't lost a game for a while now, since September sort of time. But in terms of the game itself, we did have a couple of draws and stuff in there beforehand, and we kind of were having almost a little bit of a dip. But then in terms of the game itself, when you look at it, Bergvall, obviously people talk about the second yellow card and what could have happened if he was to be sent off and so on and so forth, and then he goes and scores the winner right at the end with the kind of goal that he does. Just kind of how it went on the night, wasn't it? We put some of those chances away. We go into the Anfield leg thinking either a draw or kind of a 1-0 or a 2-1 or something like that. It's not the end of the world if we are still a goal behind going into Anfield second leg, because like we've seen, it might be the Carabao Cup, but we've seen what second legs at Anfield can do to people in any sort of competition. So you never know what could happen tomorrow. If we get one early enough, it could quickly turn to 2 or 3. And I imagine from a Tottenham standpoint, that's probably the worst thing for them, is thinking if they concede early, and that it does kind of go down that route for them. In terms of the League Cup as a whole, I just want to see your kind of feelings on the League Cup in general, because obviously it's one of those competitions where some people call it a Mickey Mouse Cup. Some people say it's a competition that doesn't really have as much prestige as some of the rest. But in terms of us, we've got the record for winning it 10 times. I think Spurs have won it, 4 times, if I'm right. So it isn't a competition, in my opinion, that should be scoffed at. It's still a cup at the end of the day. And if you get momentum building from winning this, hopefully it can push you onto a bit of momentum further on in your season. But what do you kind of think of it, Kings? What's your kind of feelings of the League Cup? Is it one of them where you go, win it and see what happens? Or is, if you play the youth and kind of second string during the competition, you get knocked out, no big deal?
I've always been of the opinion as a fan that silverware is a must, at the end of the day. And I know we all say the thing of, oh, it's Mickey Mouse Cup, but that's banter with your mates from other teams. They'll say that to you, or you say that to them if you're out and they're still in. If it's a United fan, Everton, Arsenal, whoever, if you're talking to someone, they go, oh, we're in the final and you're out, you go, yeah, Mickey Mouse, I'm not bothered anyway, because it's what's classed as the lower of the 4 trophies maybe available. But when it comes to the actual semi-finals and final, me personally is like, I feel sorry for the youth players, because they'll have done a decent job getting a run out, getting some minutes under their belt. But then it's time for me, from my point of view, it's time then to put the big boys in, get the job done, get to Wembley, and silverware, whether it's the Carabao Cup or the Champions League, they might not mean the same in terms of prestige, but it's still a trophy. At the end of the day, get it on the board, get it and that will give you momentum and confidence, I think, moving forward. So to me, it's always go for it. If you get it, then fantastic. It's definitely not a Mickey Mouse Cup at the moment.
Yeah, and it's always the way, isn't it? When your team wins it, you always feel good about it. And then
Yeah.
when it's one of your mates' teams, then they come in and they're like, "Oh, why are you celebrating this so much?" And then you see exactly the same situation. I've got United mates, and when we won it last year, like, "Oh, look, it's the biggest trophy in the world." But to you, the year before, when you won it, was the biggest trophy in the world because it meant something to you.
I was going to say, I've got to be honest. I'm lucky enough as a fan over the years that I've seen Liverpool win the League Cup live, and nobody could tell me that day it was a Mickey Mouse Cup. It was fantastic. The experience. Now, weirdly, it wasn't at Wembley. It was when they moved to Cardiff. So I think it was against Birmingham. Wasn't the best game in the world, but at the end of the day, the trophy was there, presented, and and we all went home happy. It was like, what's not to like it? You won the cup final at the end of the day. So it's like, well, you can't take that away. And I love that experience. And yes, you'd like to say the Premier League and the Champions League every single year, but a trophy, start at that one and then work your way up for the rest for the season. But it was an amazing experience, and you can't take that away. At the end of the day, keep going for as many as you can.
Yeah, and really no trophy should be sniffed at, should it? It's all history, it's all part of your heritage, isn't it? So, well, you say about kids as well, thinking of last year potentially, where all the kids didn't get a cup final for Klopp's kids last year, but I know what you mean. Usually semi-finals and finals is where the big boys tend to get played. What about you, Reece? What are your feelings on the League Cup? Is it one of prestige, or is it one you kind of think if you win it, you win it, if you don't, you don't?
For me, I'm about winning trophies. Like I said, everyone is passionate about football, and you want to win. And the reason you want to win is because you're working towards winning trophies. If you was just winning and you was never working towards anything, it's kind of a bit pointless. So it kind of make you lack motivation. It's like if you're in a job or you start at a certain position, eventually what's motivating you, what's keeping you disciplined is you're working towards something. So say if you're working really hard, you get a promotion or you move up to another position. Same as if you're not, you might get a demotion or demoted, sorry, or you could get fired. I just think I'm about winning trophies, and obviously similar to what King said, when you don't win, then teams will throw shade and be like, "Oh, that trophy's not important." We've all done that. I used to do that as well when you're knocked out because that's kind of the only thing you can say. Oh, that trophy's not important. But if you could swap with that team at the end of the season, and they had that one trophy and you had none, who's had the better season? It's the team who's won a trophy. Obviously, it's not as prestigious nowadays as maybe the Champions League or the Premier League, even the FA Cup, even though that's it's probably more prestigious than the League Cup. I think for me personally, ever since that kind of the name changed for me to the Emirates Cups, which made no sense. Like I've never really rated it as much. I still rate it, but for me, it's like I said, it's about winning trophies, and for me, it's the first trophy. So especially in terms of with a new manager, if you look at a lot of managers, Pep Guardiola, did he look like someone who doesn't take that trophy serious? How many times he's won it? If you look at Mourinho when he had his era when he first started, it's that first trophy to get that feeling to certain players who haven't won it. That okay, we've won a trophy, we know what it takes now, and then you continue from there. So for me, I take every trophy possible. Ideally, that's what I'm in football for. So yeah.
Yeah, and when you look at tomorrow as well, in particular, it's an opportunity for both Ange and Slot to get to their first final in English football. So they'll both see it as a good opportunity to kind of get a taste for it and see what it's like a trip to Wembley, what the day is out like. I know in particular when I've been down to Wembley a few times for these types of games, it's a massive occasion and it always feels it on the day, regardless of what competition it is. So yeah, it's one of them where you go, if we get through to the final, great. And then if Tottenham were to get through to the final, you can't tell me it's not. They wouldn't see it as a big trophy considering they haven't won anything since 2008, and I think it's the only thing they've won since Daniel Levy's been in charge, and since like 2001 on something as well. So I'm sure they would think it's a big trophy if they were to get to the final and have an opportunity of winning it as well. So
I think it's like we've just saying, from a fan's point of view, we love the thing of, well, we can get to the semis or to the final and the experience. But for these two managers, they've never done that in the UK before. Like, I know that Ange obviously up in Scotland, but he hasn't done it in England. Arne Slot's fresh this season. So for either of them, they're probably thinking to themselves, the pride of being able to walk out their team at Wembley is something that they want to experience. So they're going to be going for it. So, I mean, obviously, I know Spurs have got a lot of injuries. He's going to put out his strongest side. He's not going to play the kids, is he? So we have to be on our game and put out, the best team that we can to get this across the line and get to Wembley for the supporters and for Slot to have a fantastic day out, hopefully.
Yeah, completely. We'll move on to the teams then as a result of that as well. Kings, what do you think for tomorrow? Do you think pretty much similar to Bournemouth in terms of the strength of the team, or do you think there might be a couple of changes in there as well? If you were to go through your team, what would it look like for tomorrow?
I think he may change Alisson for Kelleher, and I don't really have an issue with that because, to be fair to Kelleher, he's really proved himself as a very good number 2 goalie. And I know there's talk of him obviously moving on in the summer, which will be a shame, but I can understand why. Because for a lot of teams, especially lower down out of the so-called big 6 or whatever, he's probably a number 1 starter even in the Premier League. He's that good, he's proved himself, and I think, well, there's no problem if he plays. I would imagine it would be, let me think, Robertson, Van Dijk, Konate, and I know it'll have to be Bradley, obviously with Trent missing out. Midfield, you're looking at obviously Grav, McAllister and Sloboslai, I would imagine. And then you're up front. It's a difficult one because I know he'll probably have Jota on the bench. He's going to have Salah. I think he'll go with Gakpo. I'm just not sure of the other, to be honest. But I think it's going to be pretty much a full strength. I think I hope he doesn't do this thing of 3 wingers basically as the front 3 because I don't like that option. I'd rather stick Jota on for the first half and at least try and get some goals because at least he's a striker who can score goals naturally. So Nunez, I think, and Jota will probably be on the bench. But yeah, I think it's going to be pretty much, where you're looking at for the Bournemouth game. They did a good job there considering the run Bournemouth had been on, the kind of results they were getting. A little bit nervous going into that game, to be honest. And I thought, let's see how we go. But they proved themselves again. They went there, got the points. And, the magic little man, Mo Salah, he keeps popping up and reminding the owners that, this contract needs to be signed and we want him to sign it. And, yeah, I think it'll be a full strength side pretty much. And then hopefully that'll see us through quite easily.
Yeah, just on the team you've gone through there, Lassetti says Tia Kings, Kelleher get a shot on Sunday. No, so I think I'd probably lean towards that as well. I think Alisson might be starting in goal tomorrow, and I think Kelleher, because the FA Cup is just around the corner with Plymouth.
Yeah, to be honest, I forgot about the Plymouth game coming up. So yes, he may keep him for that, and put Alisson in instead, and then rest him. Yeah, fair enough. But yeah, I think. Yeah, pretty much all the others I said should play the game, but we'll see.
What about you, Reese? What do you think for your 11? Would it be similar to Kings? Is there any kind of differences in between of what you might change?
More or less similar. I think Slot's going to go quite strong, obviously, because this is the chance for him to get to his first final with Liverpool. I don't really think he's going to leave no stone unturned or try and be like make a mistake and play someone he wasn't maybe supposed to. And if it was to go wrong, then that can kind of get thrown back at him. I think I would have said Kelleher, but because we've got the FA Cup game, I do think it'll be Alisson. And I think if you watch the game against Bournemouth, I think that's the best Alisson's been for me since he's come back from injury. Not that he's been terrible, but just the standards we set for Alisson. You could see he was maybe not as sharp, but I think that game he looks like he's come right back to the level he's supposed to be at. I think the only change would be Conor Bradley because Trent's injured. I think the midfield picks itself: Gravenberch, McAllister, Szoboszlai. I think Robinson again, even though I would pick Tsimikas personally, but I think he's going to pick Robinson. He had a good game, obviously, against Bournemouth, and I think Tsimikas will probably play on the weekend. Up front, if it was me picking it, I would, in an ideal world, I would love Jota to start, but I think because he keeps picking up injuries and we don't know how serious these injuries are, because 1 minute he plays, next minute he's injured, tells me that he's constantly carrying that injury because his body's always breaking down. I would play Nunes if it was me, because I would rather just a direct striker up front. And then if it's not working, then you can always go back to maybe a Diaz up front. But I could see Slot just keeping it the same, where Diaz is through the middle, Gap on the left and Slot on the right, because of how well and how convincing we kind of won our last game. So I think he'll kind of keep it the same. But if it was me, it would be Nunes to come in and Bradley.
Yeah, fair. I think it seems to be a debate we have each game now in between whether it's going to be Tsimikas or Robbo and whether it's going to be Diaz, Nunes, or someone down the middle. Kings, what do you think for tomorrow? Do you think he'll stick with Robbo, or do you think he might swap it Tsimikas in? Because it seems to be almost game in, game out. There's almost a change of every single time, isn't there, at the moment, with kind of flip-flopping between the two of them?
I think I'll go with what Reece said, to be honest. I think it'll be Andy Robertson, Tsimikas at the weekend. The good thing is, I suppose, he can put a full strength or a pretty strong side out tomorrow, knowing that he's probably going to make wholesale changes at the weekend. So they almost get almost a week before the derby, to get a rest. And once they've played this game, they'll get a week off. Most of them won't play the weekend, or at the worst, they'll probably be on the bench. And that's no disrespect to Plymouth, but home or away, we should have more than enough for them. They're struggling in the Championship. I know they're going to raise their game because this is their cup final, but I would think, like the weekend, he can play Chiesa and Elliott and players like that. And probably Nunes again. And the so-called, big players will play this game and then get rested, ready for the derby, which would be great because they can't, hopefully then, fingers crossed, not pick up red cards or injuries or anything else, So, yeah, I think it'll be Andy Robertson personally, and then, like I say, Tsimikas play the weekend.
Yeah. When you think ahead to the sort of team as well that we might put out for tomorrow, thinking of that kind of front line almost is where people have maybe almost disagreements or kind of different opinions on who should be there or who shouldn't be up there. If Jota's fully fit, I think it could definitely be an option. I know he's kind of coming back in and out, and he seems to be back in the squad now. So hopefully that means he is fully fit. Whether he can play 90 or not is another question. I'm not too sure on. Depends really, because he was in the squad at the weekend, wasn't he? But depends whether Slot feels he can play 90 minutes. For me, I think in terms of the team for tomorrow, I think it will probably be Robertson again, left back, and then Tsimikas to play at the weekend in terms of the Plymouth game. And I also think it wouldn't surprise me at all if the team is pretty much identical to Bournemouth, apart from Bradley being the change at right back. I think he will still go, for my opinion, with Diaz down the middle. And I think the main reason being is when we played Tottenham away in the league in that 6-3 game, we played, I think it was Diaz down the middle then, and Zobo was kind of coming alongside him in the press when we were almost as a 4 in a press. And we were really high on their defence and their 2 holding midfielders. I think on the day they played Basuma and Sarr, if I'm right, in kind of the CDM positions. And I think the almost the running power of Szoboszlai alongside Diaz to hunt down in the press allowed Gakpo and Salah to get in the game a little bit more. So it wouldn't surprise me if we got on the front foot in terms of the same way in this game and put out the similar type of team in this game to almost attack it in the same sort of vein. In terms of Szoboszlai in that game away at Tottenham, I think it was one of his best games, definitely of this season, if not for a little while longer as well. In terms of him, how key do you think someone like him might be in midfield tomorrow, Reece? Do you think the battle might be won there in midfield between where they might have to play 2 holders again if they're trying to hold on to a lead, or do you think they might be a little more expansive?
And do you mean expansive? Do you mean as in Tottenham, or you mean us?
Us, do you think maybe we'll have 2 as a pivot, or 2 kind of, or Szoboszlai pressing as high as he was in that game?
I think you'll have Gravenberch, and then you'll have McAllister, who can go a bit more forward, and then you'll have Szoboszlai, who's will be in the 10, but obviously because he's up and down, he can drop back a bit as well. I think he's very important to the way we play. I know the fan base is a bit mixed. Like me, I'm a big fan of Szoboszlai. I know the fan base are a bit mixed because for what he offers off the ball, on the ball, he hasn't offered maybe enough as what we would like for a number 10 and based on what we saw for RB Leipzig. But I think the last few games, you started to see him kind of tick a bit more on the ball, especially I think it was against Ipswich, the goal he scored where he dropped the shoulder. That's kind of what I kind of want to see week in, week out. I think obviously what he offers off the ball, the pressing, the running, he's very athletic, strong. I think that's why Slot continues to play him. I think he's very important to how we play. When we haven't had him play, we still win, but you could see the difference. The midfield is maybe not as strong because of the running he does. So I think tomorrow, based on who they got in midfield, I still think it's going to be a tough game regardless, even though I'm confident we'll win, because I just think Ange's going to go for it. Obviously, he's used to, he said previously, he always wins a trophy in his first season and whatnot. So, and because they're under pressure as well. So I think he's going to try and go for it. And obviously, they've signed 1 or 2 players. So I think he's definitely going to try and do as much as he can and get his players sides up to get to the final. But I just think Szoboszlai is very important to how we play. I'm hoping, obviously, he scores. So it kind of eases up people kind of criticizing him in terms of what he does on the ball. The numbers are a bit better. But yeah, I think I'm confident that he's going to have a good game.
Fair. Kings, do you think that midfield almost picks itself when we have these bigger types of games with Grav, McAllister and Szoboszlai? Or do you think there's anything to be said potentially for a Jones or an Elliott to start making their way into these types of games too? Or especially, I think with Plymouth at the weekend, I don't think either of them will get a look in for tomorrow's starting 11. But what are your thoughts on potentially if they should be or could be moving in instead of any of the 3 that are there?
Exactly what you just said, to be honest. With the weekend game coming up, I can't see he's going to risk, being overrun in midfield and then maybe obviously not win the game when they've got a game at the weekend that really is made for them. They should be too good for Plymouth in midfield with even Elliott and Curtis in the midfield there. I think if you look at it, Grav's been a revelation at the back, playing the 6 role. He's been fantastic to be. Whether Slot was forced behind the scenes to put him there because they wouldn't buy anybody, or whether he genuinely said, "Listen, let's wait and see if we need anybody. I'm going to try and experiment and it's worked. I don't know if he'll ever come out and say it, but however this come about, it's worked, so it's great. McAllister, I mean, what can you say about it? Was it about 35 million, something like that? They paid for him 40 million.
Yeah, nothing.
It's like, what an absolute bargain that has turned out to be. He's such, he's got so much, good about him that you think he's worth far more than that. And it's like, well, whoever did that deal, obviously they need a hug, I think, from most Liverpool fans, because he's been brilliant. And then you look at Szoboszlai, and the issue we've had, and I've said this on other shows that we've done, he has gone up and down in his time here. He started off, particular way, and everybody's like, oh, he's going to be a good signing. And of course, he's known at international level for fantastic striking of the ball and scoring. And you're thinking, when's it going to happen for us? And then he go off the ball a little bit, and then he comes back. And I think at the moment he's on one of his upwards runs. He's doing really well. I mean, and he has scored a decent goal, funny enough, lately. But I think the three of them together are a very good combination, and it's very hard to see Curtis Jones going, well, yeah, I'm going to break into them three and I'm going to make a name for myself and be the regular. I can't see it happening anytime soon, because they've got so much experience and they offer such different qualities between the three of them that, to me, it picks itself, like you say, because I don't think there's any other combination at the club at the moment that's going to play any better. So yeah, I'd stick with that, I would.
Yeah, definitely. Looking ahead at the kind of Tottenham team that they might put out for tomorrow as well, I wouldn't know what kind of 11 they'll probably go with. It. I imagine they'll probably be similar to last time in the league, where they had two holding just in front and almost tried to keep it tight in the first 20 minutes, 25 minutes or so, and just make sure the atmosphere doesn't get away from them in those first little bit of the game, to be honest with you. But with their new signings that they've got, potentially the two of them, I think when I saw Ange's interview today, I think he said that Danso will play, whether he plays all of it or plays part of it. Don't know whether that's the case or whether he'll start or need to come on later on. And obviously they've got Tell now as well in terms of new players that they've just brought in. Do you think potentially it could be more of a kind of attacking issue with Tell in their attack, and whether they might be a little bit more solid at the back with Danso, or do you think it could end up going the other way, where you saw with City, where they played that lad in the first 5 minutes of his centre half, he was a bit shaky and they gave a goal away straight away against Chelsea? You don't really know which way it could go. Do you think they will risk chucking the two lads in straight away, Reece, or do you think they might kind of welcome him as the game goes on?
Is Richarlison available, or is he injured?
Yes, as far as I know, he's available. Yeah, I think he's supposed to be.
Because I know, obviously, the reason they bought a striker is because Solanke's injured, but I'm not sure. I think defensively, I think that he's more likely to go in, the other guy, because obviously I've heard that Van der Ven may be available, but I don't know if he's going to be silly enough to risk him, because I think when he did that before and he brought him back too soon, that kind of made him kind of get injured again. I think the striker will play. I think Richarlison will start, and I think that striker will feature at some point. If he does start with him, then that's very bold, and then obviously you can see what he's trying to go for it. But I think more the centre back will come in, because he kind of has to. I think obviously you've got Richarlison, so yeah, I think that the striker will come on during the game for me at some point.
Yeah, I'd have to agree as well. I think they'll probably go similar with attack, and then I think with the way the defense has been, with all of the injuries they kind of got there, it wouldn't surprise me at all if that Danso did start for them and probably come off 70 minutes or so if he does have that in him. Just looking at this from the set, he says Kulusevski down the right hand side is probably their biggest threat, and again, the way he's been playing for some games this season, it'd be hard to kind of argue with that in some cases as well. Might that be the issue potentially, what people keep debating with the Robertson Shimmercast type situation? Who would you rather have up against him tomorrow, the more kind of experienced defensive head in Robertson, or somebody who's probably got a little bit better delivery for us going forward in Shimmercast? Do you think if he's on having a good game tomorrow, who would you rather have there, Kings? I know we said before, but would that change your mind if he was on form?
Yeah, yeah, because when he's on it, to be fair, he is a good player. I've been quite impressed with him. That's a difficult one, to be honest, because Robertson is a good defender.
He can be. Yeah.
Going forward, it's kind of like, I think possibly he's coming to the end of his Liverpool time. It's falling off a little bit now, and it's like, And then you got Simicast the other way, who isn't maybe the best defender, but he's really good going forward. It's like, if we could combine the two, then we'd be all right, wouldn't we? So,
Yeah, the Robertson of old is almost what we need in terms of that, isn't it?
yeah. I still think he'll go with Robertson.
Yeah, so do I.
My feelings for them for the game tomorrow is more. It's probably going against what most others think, but I think he'll actually come out first half and put the new players in, and he'll go for it. Only for the reason they're already 1-0 up. So if they can come out and score, then they're thinking, right, Liverpool have got to look at it and go, right, well, we're 2-0 down in this game. If it was 0-0, I think he'd be more conservative and just be like, let's see how the game goes, bring the new players in, you never know. Sneak a goal maybe. But with them being 1 up already, they've got a very slight cushion. And if they come out in the first half and really go for it and get one before we do, then obviously that really sets them up, as in the 2-0 up. Liverpool have to score 3 then, to win it. And yeah, I've got the feeling he might go for it from the start and just say to them, listen, if you can get in their heads and get an early goal, then that's really going to make Liverpool sit up and think. Yeah. Where, obviously if Liverpool score first, then straight away it's like, well, we're now level. Let's see how it goes from here. But yeah, it's a real odd one because they're winning. But I can't quite put my finger on how he might play this one, to be honest.
And you're just thinking about this as well. Tottenham need to be more worried about us than we do about them. I completely agree with you. They do, because especially with the second leg being at Anfield, they'll know kind of what can happen to teams if the first 20 minutes, half an hour can get away from you quite quickly, regardless of the fact there's a Carabao Cup. A cup competition under the lights, semi-final at Anfield is always going to be a tricky second leg, regardless of who you are. So, yeah, hopefully that's how it goes in the first 20 minutes, half an hour. But with the way Anges as well, with what he says in his interviews, where that's just who we are, mate. So when he says stuff like that about how they're going to attack, it wouldn't surprise me at all if they did come out and try and attack straight away as well. So, do you know what? If they do and they play that high line, all the best to them, and see what happens from there is all I can think about it. So see what happens. In terms of kind of who to watch for the game or what you're kind of expecting from anyone, what would you think in terms of kind of key players to watch for us or even for them as well? And kind of score predictions from you both as well. Just come around to you separately. Reece, what do you think for either what score prediction or who's the person to watch in the game?
I think to watch for us is Gakpo and Salah. I think Gakpo, I was listening to a stream the other day of someone's stream. I think if you look at Gakpo's goal ratios this season, I don't know if it's 15 goals he's got so far in total. I think he's kind of going under the radar how well he's kind of doing. I think so. I'd watch out, and obviously Salah speaks for himself. We all know about Salah, how phenomenal, wonderful player he is. I think those two. Obviously, if Jota does get some minutes, Jota can always score. Midfield, McAllister, watch out for as well. I think he kind of just goes under the radar because he's just smooth operator. And to Gravenberch, obviously, I love watching as well how graceful he is on the ball, how athletic. In terms of Spurs, the new signing, the Tell up front. Also, Richarlison. Even though I don't rate him like that, I know he always likes playing against Liverpool because he used to play for Everton as well. And I remember when he
loves a goal against us as well.
He scored for Tottenham when we were beating them. What was it? Was it 3-0 and they came back and then we scored in the last minute, and then the way he celebrated. Yeah, I've never liked him, even from when he played for Everton. I think, was it Thiago he injured that season for us as well? Yeah, so I can't really stand the guy, but I know he's kind of got that skullduggery in him where he's always up for playing against Liverpool. He'll kind of do whatever it takes, even if it means injuring a player. So you got to kind of keep an eye on him. Obviously, Kulusevski's a talented player. I know Song's kind of looks like he's kind of declining, but he's another one as well. You kind of got to keep an eye on. And then scores, I'm going to go. Let's see. I'm going to go 3-1 Liverpool. I'm going to go. So I think Tottenham will score after we're kind of winning comfortably. I think something like that. If we're winning 2-0, they might score, and then we score again. And then goal scorers. Gakpo, Salah, And let's see, midfield maybe. I want Szoboszlai to score. I don't know if he's necessarily going to, but I would like Szoboszlai to score.
Good on it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Good. What about you, Reece? Same sort of stuff for you. What do you think? What are your thoughts? King, sorry.
As we've already said about Kulusevski, I think he'll be a danger man for them tomorrow. And the new lad obviously will come on either from the beginning or at some point, and he'll be keen to impress, thinking to himself, well, I obviously could get to a cup final, straight away here. So it's like, I'm sure he'll be putting on a performance. I suppose, as Lasidius said, it's like they've got to worry about us being at home. Everything Reece has said, to be honest, was bang on, because we are under our own lights with our crowd roaring them on. So it is going to be difficult for Spurs. They'll come and try and do a professional job. I think for us, Mo Salah, I think, will score. He seems to be picking up again at the moment. I went to see, I was at the Champions League game against Lille. I was in the crowd there, and watching him, like, where the camera's following the rest of the team round, when he wasn't on the ball, I was thinking to myself, he's not doing very well tonight. And it wasn't the best performance overall for the team. Mm-hmm. But just that little quick bit of magic, all of a sudden, boom, and then he had his 50th goal, and it was just, there it was. That's all you need from Mo, isn't it? It's just one kind of little glint of a gap, and he's in before you know it. And I do think he'll score. I think Diaz, either from the beginning again or coming on sub, might score. I think in the last game, the game before last, I think, when that goal ruled out at the Tottenham Stadium, and I think he's got a bit of a bit between his teeth to prove a point here. It's like, right, you chalked off that goal, which shouldn't have been, so I'm going to have you for that now. He's going to make him pay. So I think Diaz will score, Mo's going to score, and I got a funny feeling that Virgil van Dijk might score from a corner, bang it as he does, towering in. Trying to think, because I think to myself it might be 4-1, so 4-2 on aggregate overall. So I don't know, I'd have to think of somebody else, but probably maybe 2 from Mo, possibly. But I think we'll have too much from them. But they have, like Reece said about Son, he does seem to be a lot less prolific since Harry Kane's gone, to be fair. So whether that's just age catching up with him, or the new system, or the new strike pattern, it just isn't gelling, because it happens. So I think that's a mixture probably of all of it. Now, saying that, he'll probably come on and score a hat trick tomorrow, and I'll be crying. But I've got the feeling it's going to be 4-1 on the night, and we will comfortably get this. I just hope it isn't a 2-0 win, and which is great, but to make it edgy all the way to the end with them just looking for that equalising goal, maybe. But yeah, I go for 4-1.
You got Brendan here, who agrees 4-1 might predict the score. Darwin starts and his pace will destroy the high line. I think Jay Muse earlier on, 3-1 is where I'm at. And I think Lissetti was also 3-1. And I was also going to be in that camp. I was thinking to myself 3-1 as well, but I'm going to try and change it up just a little bit so there's no copywriting on what Reece is putting on there as well. So I'm going to say 3-0. I did think Tottenham might grab a goal, but I'm going to change my mind and I'm going to go with 3-0. And I think in terms of tomorrow's game, I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of who to watch for Kulusevski. I think he's going to be their main man in attack, and I think it could be almost won and lost from us in terms of how high we kind of press in the first 20 minutes, half an hour, and see where we can get a couple of early goals and see how comfortable it might be from there. And hopefully the atmosphere picks up from there, and see what we can do and see if we can get a couple of early goals and push on. In terms of goal scorers, I think fairly similar as well. I think Gakpo loves this competition. He seems to always bag a couple of goals in it, so I wouldn't be surprised. I'd go 2 goals for Gakpo and I'll go 1 goal for Salah. But I do also just want to just before I came on, my son asked me to put his score prediction in as well. So my 12-year-old lad, Jacobs, asked me to put his. So he thinks 2-0, and he thinks Gakpo, and he thinks Curtis Jones is going to get the second one late on in the game. So that could be a bit of a shout to look out for. If anyone wants to stick a fiver on anything, I'm not promoting betting, but have a little go on that and see what you think.
I mean,
Go
The
on,
thing is,
Reece.
Dylan, I suppose we all pick out Mo Salah, Gakpo, Diaz, etc. And it doesn't bother me if the goalie scores in the last minute and it's off his butt cheek or anything else, as long as it means at the end of the game we go through to Wembley. It's like, we all like predict like this every time we're on these kind of shows, and it's like, well, it doesn't really matter if it's Curtis
No,
Jones,
exactly.
Elliot. I'm not bothered as long as it goes in and it means we win. It can go
Exactly.
off the referee as long as he allows it and it goes in. It's fine. I'm not bothered.
Yeah, exactly. And are you lads heading up tomorrow to Anfield to go there, or I know you were at the Lille game recently, Kings. You're at this one as well, or not?
No, I haven't managed to blag a ticket for this one. So if anybody's out there and they want to offer me a ticket, I'll gladly take it. But it's unlikely being a high-profile semi-final, I suppose. So I'm not going to get it.
All right, you, Reece.
No, I'll be watching it from home. I wish I could go to the game. Similar to Kings, someone's got a ticket available, or they're willing to give a ticket away. And please, like I said,
I think I've bagged that one first now, Reece.
Yeah, sorry.
Contact me through the group, through Twitter, something. Find a way. There's a way.
Just the order I came through, Reece. That's all. It's just unlucky that Kings was slightly in there first. I happen to be lucky enough to have a World Cup scheme, so me and my son are going tomorrow. So yeah,
nice, good.
Hopefully,
so whereabouts are you?
We're on the Kenny. I think we always pick the same sort of seats for World Cup schemes. So he's on the third row in the Kenny there. So see what happens tomorrow.
Quite close to the action, and that'll be really good. To be fair, I think there.
Yeah, he loves watching the warm up. So because he loves to come and watch the warm up and be by the players, so we always sit in the same sort of place for it. So
I was in the lower Kenny for the Lille game, to be fair, and I really enjoyed that view. I thought it was a real close proximity to the pitch, but just far enough back that I had an overall view as well, which it was a decent view, to be fair.
Yeah, good. Just because we didn't have a stream in the last couple of days, I just want to go. Cheers, J Moves. Hopefully we enjoy it and get a good result. Me and my lad can come back nice and happy from it afterwards. In terms of the last couple of days, obviously with transfers and stuff like that, just because we haven't had a stream, just a couple of things, just a few minutes just to mention as well. Obviously, in terms of the transfer deadline day, no incomings for Liverpool during this transfer window, but obviously information's kind of coming through social media that they expect a big summer, but who could say what could happen with that? I know the expectation is that's what's going to happen, but just from our front, a couple of loan moves just on the last day as well, just to think about. So obviously Dan's went out on loan to Sunderland and Caden Gordon went out on loan to Portsmouth. What do you reckon of the lads going out just to get a bit of experience in Dan's in particular? Because I know there was a conversation a little while ago about whether it should be Dan's or Nunez potentially as the striker down the middle if Shota isn't fit. So what are your kind of thoughts on those two loan moves for the young lads? Kings, I'll start with you.
It doesn't surprise me, to be honest. I suppose Dan's is a little bit more of a shock because he has been in and around the first team a little bit lately, but he's not, I suppose, refined enough yet to be the starting striker. Now, that seems a funny thing to say when over the years you've had players like Robbie Fowler and Michael Owen who've been young, come in, set the world on fire, and then they just stayed in the side because they were good enough. And if he'd have come in and done that, I'd have been straight away saying, well, obviously let him stay with the squad. But I don't think it will do him any harm whatsoever going to Sunderland. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the picture of him signing his contract. He didn't look really happy, to be fair. He was just sitting there with a. He's probably thought, I really didn't want to come, and that's nothing against Sunderland. He probably didn't want to leave Liverpool, where he's just hopefully starting to break through. But I can understand till the end of the season, giving him chance to get some goals, play more. Championship football is a real good level, so it'll really put him up against some top defenders and just maybe help him with his game a little bit before the summer, where he obviously joins back up, does the next pre-season tour, and then could quite conceivably then kick on with the Liverpool squad in the next season, because I think Slot does like what he sees. It's just, again, giving him more experience and getting him to a point where he feels happy and confident just to come on and be like, I can score here, no problem. So, yeah, I can see why he's done it. The other one, again, it's just a case of getting more experience. I suppose it's the same with all clubs sending out younger players on loan, isn't it? They just want them to get some experience and just see how they handle the pressure playing regular. Can they do it, every game? Are they good enough to make the step up, I suppose? So it'll be interesting. You know, I'll keep an eye now on how Sunderland are getting on, because I know that they're doing okay, to be fair, in the Championship. So it's not like he's gone there. He's not like he's going to a team like Plymouth, maybe, who was struggling, and you get hacked by the defenders while you're just trying to get the ball away and things. I think he's got a chance to show there that he's got some skill, and they'll be happy with the result at the end, because if he's got him a few goals, and Liverpool might be happy with him getting some game time and getting more experience. So I think it's a positive move, to be fair.
Yeah, and I think if it wasn't for the start of the season where he potentially got injured, he might have either had a couple of games here or there, or even had a loan a little bit earlier. I think it's just a bit unlucky for Dan's that he had the injury quite earlier on into the season, where he had a bit of a while without playing. And then I think coming back in for the PSV game in particular, where he did start the game and he did have a bit more of kind of the game, I think that almost not made Slot's mind up, but kind of gave him that kick to say, yeah, maybe a bit of time to have a bit of first team adults football, see what it's like to actually play week in, week out men's football, and then see what the kind of experience goes from there. Just like you say, for that experience for next season or the season after and see where we go. In terms of Cade Gordon, I know we had the loan to Norwich as well. I think he's another lad who a couple of seasons ago, I think he made a couple of FA Cup appearances and the odd appearance here and there off the bench in the league. And it looked like he might kick on from there, but then another lad who got a really little bit of an injury and kind of knocked back on his career a little bit for a couple of years. So good loan spell he had at Norwich previously, and I think even half the season at Portsmouth, just getting that experience in men's football and see from there. What about you, Reece? What do you think they're both gone out on loan? Do you think it's positive news, especially for Dan's, just to get first team football and kind of see what it's about?
No, I think it's positive for both players. I'll start with Dan's first. I rate Dan's highly. I think he's a bright young talent. He looks like he's got kind of all the attributes to be like a really good player. He just kind of needs to fill out more from what I saw when he played against PSG. I mean, sorry, not PSG.
PSV.
Yeah, PSV. There we go. PSV. And he looks maybe that he's not used to the tempo of the game, maybe at the high for the first team kind of thing. But so maybe Slot saw that and thought, like I said, I do think he likes him, but maybe he probably thought you don't need to rush or force it, and he's probably maybe looked at and maybe speed up his development by allowing him to go on loan. And I think Sunderland's in the Championship. I think that's kind of the perfect place for him, because that's a tough division. There's a lot of games you're going to play, a lot of different styles, different teams. Some games more physical. I think he's going to kind of pick up that man strength. Obviously, he didn't look, like King said, maybe over the moon that he was going to Sunderland, but I think once he grasps, he understands why he's there, and I'm sure Slot has probably spoke to him and said to him, "This is for part of your development. You can develop a bit more here. You might get more of a look in next season." So I'm looking forward to watching him as well. I'm going to try and pay attention to Sunderland's game, and he'll be playing. Is it Bellingham's younger brother?
Yeah,
Is it
Joey
plays
Bellingham,
as well, right? So it should be interesting as well. Gordon, I think that's good for. I think that's good for him. Obviously, it's kind of been quiet of him because obviously he's had his injuries here and there. Obviously, a few seasons before that, we were starting to see him kind of play in some of the cup games a bit more, and you can see he's talented as well. I just hope he can kind of just build up some momentum and just try and play some games consistently without getting injured. And I think, yeah, I'll be watching him as well to see how that goes. But I think two talented young players. I think that's part of the development. Ideally, you would like a young player sometimes, and if they're so great, they can just come in to the first team. But it shouldn't. It's very rare it kind of happens like that. And a team like Liverpool, you've got so many different players. It shouldn't have to be where they're rushed in unless you're down to your bare bones. So I will be watching the two of them closely.
Yeah, I think Dan's as well. They are up there near the playoffs, aren't they? So it should be a good level for him to kind of kick on and see what he can do for a little while in the Championship. And hopefully it works out for him. And next season he can come back and be in and around the first team again and see where we go from there. Same with Gordon. Hopefully he gets a good couple of months there and just gets to playing again rather than a couple of niggly injuries here and there, and see what we can get from him in the coming seasons as well. Sadly, no incomings to talk about. Hopefully during the summer we'll have a little bit more in terms of incomings to talk about from there, but who could say? Cool. So what I'm going to do just before we finish off, lads, just make sure to like and subscribe again for everything. Turn your notifications on for future streams, and we will have future streams coming up at 7:30 during the weeks during the week, and then at the weekend a post-match stream and a 7:30 stream as well after our game on Sunday. Hopefully, after tomorrow, we're speaking about another victory and another trip to Wembley for the Reds. Hopefully, 3 out of 4 seasons, another trip back down Wembley Way to Anfield South, as people like to call it. See what happens from there.
Yeah.
And thank you all for joining us. The over 2,500 that have joined us tonight. Thank you, Reese. Thank you, Kings, and see everyone soon. Thank you.